Good morning. This is Mike Mackenber again with Adams Insurance, presenting the third in a series of 7 fleet safety training modules. This was entitled The Normal Daily Drive. Each of us hop in our vehicles in the morning. We head out into the neighborhoods, head to our office or wherever we're going, and we might call that a normal daily drive. But if you're really thinking and what those drives are like, now there are no two of them normal, nor two of them are the same, and no two of them are in a manner in which something different doesn't happen each time. This session, we're going to deal with looking at what happens as we drive through our neighborhoods on our way from home to work, and the types of things we could run into, and the types of things that we need to be prepared to handle. But before I start out with this, I want to deal with a few driver's duties and responsibilities. The first duty or responsibility of any safe driver is to accept safe and economical operation of your vehicle as your basic function of your job. That means you are understanding your responsibility is to operate that vehicle in a safe manner and have no accidents. Secondly, you must understand and practice the safe rules of the road. Thirdly, you must be alert to the factors that might be going on around you. Fourth, you must report promptly anything that needs to be reported in regards to the quality of the vehicle or anything that might happen in regards to an accident. And finally, you need to maintain yourself in a controlled condition as you drive that vehicle so you protect both yourself, the general public, and the company for which you work. If you understand those rules, then you understand that driving that vehicle is not something that is just a happenstance process, but it's a process in which you are going to take all the steps that are necessary to make sure you come home alive. So first of all, the perfectly normal day. In the perfectly normal drive, you want to make sure you are driving, and we're going to use the word defensively. I love football. You've got the offense and you've got the defense. And the basic understanding of what these two groups will do, one tries to score points, the other tries to stop them from scoring points. Or put it in another vernacular, one attacks, the other defends. I want you to look at yourself as a driver as a defender. You are defending you and your vehicle from all the attackers that are coming at you around. Now, their purpose is not to attack you, but in reality, that's what they're doing. So you want to, first of all, make sure you have an attitude that is alert and aware of what's going on around you. You want to be courteous. You understand that people are doing things not purposely to cause you to get mad, but they're doing things because that's what they do. And as they are driving in a manner that causes you to become irritable from time to time, you've got to back up and tell yourself, I'm going to be courteous and in control. Secondly, you have to have foresight. You may have driven this route 100 times before, but you don't know what has changed over the night as you begin today. The weather might be different. There might be snow or ice on the road. It may have frozen. There may be a burst pipe and water went across the road and it got cold last night. Remember cold. And the pipe and water froze. So you want to make sure you have to have foresight to know, number one, the route, but also the understanding to have your eyes open for what might be taking place. Thirdly, you want to have knowledge and experience. Well, the experience is what you've done over the years in driving a vehicle. Hopefully the vehicle you're driving, you've driven before. And so therefore, you're hoping that you're ready to handle the same mechanical functions you did before. But the knowledge you bring to it is vitally important too. Not only the things you learned as to how to drive, but also the things you've learned in the routes you've taken to help you react in what takes place around you. Next, you have to be scanning. And this is, I think, the most critical thing any driver can do. And that is you don't get yourself into a posture and all you're doing is just looking straight ahead, eyes focused and not moving. Because while you're looking straight ahead, eyes focused and not moving, to your left and right, things are occurring that could impact your drive. So you need to teach yourself to use your eyes in a scanning process. Scanning to the left, scanning to the right, scanning in your mirrors to see what's happening behind you so that you know everything that's going on around you and you're prepared for what might be coming into the picture. Then you're looking for blind spots. Each vehicle, as you drive it, you know, has blind spots. You set your mirrors to try to eliminate some of those blind spots, but there are always going to be a few left. So if you recognize where the blind spots are, there are ways through the movement of your eyes and the movement of your head, you can keep track and look into those spots to make sure nothing's there. I think one of the worst stories that I ever have remembered, and also a circumstance that took place, happened to me when I was in Michigan. I got a phone call. One of our clients was a garbage disposal company, and one of their trucks had backed up and rolled over a 3-year-old boy who had crawled underneath the wheels, and they never saw him. Because you see, he was in their blind spots. They had seen him walking around and playing in the front yard, and when they were not looking, he crawled near the truck, crawled underneath the vehicle, and was really enjoying watching the guy sitting there behind the rear tire. The driver didn't know that. He had to back up his vehicle to be able to go around another vehicle, and he killed a 3-year-old boy. You want to look at your blind spots. You want to look around your vehicle. You want to double check everything that's going on so you make sure that you are in control of not only your vehicle, but the circumstances around it. Communicating. If you're going to turn left at the next intersection, your lights of your vehicle need to be telling everybody else that's what you're going to do. If you're going to stop at the next intersection, you need to have tail lights that are working. So as you apply your brakes, the lights go off and everybody sees you're stopping at the intersection. But at the same time, you need to be looking at other people to make sure that their signals are being picked up by you. That's part of the communication process. And sometimes you need to use your horn as a means of communicating. If you're driving a large commercial vehicle, hopefully it has a backup alarm that goes off when you're backing it up. If it doesn't, I would tap your horn 3 short bursts. That's getting everybody's attention that you're moving that vehicle. And that's a means of telling someone to watch out for what you're doing. As you're coming to an intersection, you see somebody who's turning left in front of you and you plan on turning right. Make sure your signals are working. Watch the eyes of the driver who's coming the other way, who's going to turn left in front of you, to make sure he doesn't turn before you make your turn, because you have both the right of way and it's supposed to handle it that way. Yet, remember, your right of way is not a right. If he violates that right of way, you don't have the right to hit him. So therefore, we've got to make sure we control the circumstances. And one of the ways can be using a horn as a means of acknowledging that you're about to do something. Spacing. Spacing is really simple. You want to keep yourself 3 seconds behind the vehicle in front of you. You want to keep yourself in the center of your lane so you've got room to give left and right. And you want to try to keep yourself in front of the vehicles behind you, hopefully more than one length. Obviously, those people behind you might be tailgaters, and then you can't control that other than possibly slowing down and make them going around you. But each time, what you want to do is give yourself as much space all around your vehicle so that you can react when you have to react at something that happens out of the ordinary. That guy stops in front of you, you want to have time to stop. That person who's in the lane next to you to the right, and they all of a sudden start weaving into your lane, you want to be far enough over in your lane so that when they weave and you tap your horn to remind them you're there, they don't hit your vehicle. That's called spacing. That's something you've got to make sure you take the time to do. All of this is designed to tell you that driving a vehicle is not just putting the key in the ignition, turning the motor on, putting in a gear, and hitting the accelerator. There's a lot more to the process. And you know that. Every one of you are qualified drivers. But that doesn't mean all of us don't think every day of all the responsibilities we have. This class is designed to remind you of things you know and to draw attention to them so that we hope you're going to go out and remember some of these and be a better driver today. City driving. City driving is the most dangerous driving any individual can do anywhere in their driving process. Because in the city, while you're driving, there are a myriad of things that are taking place both in front of you, behind you, and on either side. And you've got to be safely in control. You've got to know what's going on, and you've got to be able to control your vehicle to avoid any hazard before and as it's presenting itself. City driving is one of those things that we do every day. And a lot of times we do it without even thinking. But unfortunately, those are the times when it's most dangerous, because when our mind is not engaged in the driving, but engaged in something else, we are not doing safe driving. There are all kinds of streets in the city. There are one-way streets. When you expect everybody is going to be going the same way, you don't have to worry about the cars coming from the opposite direction. Wrong. I work at a building that's on 20th Street. And getting here, we have two streets. One goes north and one south. And the street that I pass just before I get to my building is a street that is a northbound street. As I'm waiting at that light, you'll be surprised how many people I see turn left from the other direction onto that one-way street going the wrong way. They see 4 lanes there, 3 of them are full of vehicles, but one's open, and that's the lane they pull in, going against traffic. And then about 30 feet into it, they recognize, oops, I've gone the wrong way. People do that all the time. So if that person's pulling in front of you and you're going 30 miles an hour, that could be a memorable meeting. You want to make sure you watch out for people going the wrong way on one-way streets. Also, one-way streets are not any more safe from the left and right because people could be moving at you from 2 directions at any time, and you've got to be watching out for that. Then you have the two-way streets, so that's the streets that have the yellow lines or the white lines in the middle. You have people 1 or 2 lanes going in opposite directions. People cross center lines all the time. You got to be watching out for that. You got to be watching out for that vehicle who may be driving too slow because they don't know which turn they should make. And so everybody is becoming irritated and going around them, and just then they decide that you go around them to turn right instead of left, right into your vehicle as you are passing them. You've got to be careful. People are going to react many times not the way you expect, but the way that they need to go. Then we have some streets that are reversible. In other words, in the morning they go north and the evening they go south. Don't have too many of those in Houston, but there are a few. We have left lanes that are streets that have multiple lanes, 2 going north, 2 south, and maybe a center lane that's a left turn lane. You're coming to intersections and people are at the intersection. They're away from you. You're turning left. They're turning left in front of you. And then all of a sudden, as you turn left, they decide to go straight out of that left turn lane. Are you ready to handle that? Are you ready to react in a manner that does not cause an accident? In other words, yes, they did wrong. But that's not an excuse for letting the accident happen. You're dealing with the process. Dealing with the movement of the vehicles is a process of control. You need to be looking at the eyes. The eyes tell multiple stories of the individuals in the other vehicles. Watching the movement of the wheels. If that vehicle is turning left, but all of a sudden you see the tires are not even partially turned to the left, they're still facing straight or even maybe to the right, that vehicle is not ready to turn where you expect it to turn, and it may turn where you don't expect it. Sharing the road with motorcycles and bicyclists. Houston has a lot of streets in which they've created bicycle lanes on the right-hand side. And those are great, except the bicyclists don't stay in the lanes. And so we've got to be cognizant of they're coming down the street. And sometimes these bicyclists are moving and weaving as much as we are. And many times these bicyclists are talking on telephones as they're riding their bicycles. And that makes them not in total control. You have to drive in a manner that bicycle is always in your vision. Motorcycles are also equally difficult. They're supposed to operate just like a motor vehicle would. In other words, they're not supposed to weave in and out of traffic. They're supposed to handle themselves just like a normal car or a normal truck. We all know that doesn't happen. Traveling on trips, many times I've seen bicycle groups coming, and they're usually riding side by side in their lane and maybe 6 deep. Well, side by side is really not what they're supposed to be doing, because each one is supposed to have the lane to themselves. But we accept that because they're traveling as a group and there's no problem until they get into the city. And then the side-by-side comes and goes. So when you have a bicycle, you need to be watching it. When you have a motorcycle, you need to be watching, because that vehicle could be going in a manner that is not safe for you, nor safe for them. And you're responsible for the process. Kids are finally going back to school. And I'm glad. I have sons that have multiple children, and they are so happy these kids are not at home anymore. But going back to school creates additional things that traffic needs to be aware of. You have school buses that are constantly turning on their lights, telling you they're stopping and either letting kids off or picking kids up. You need to make sure you stay back at least 2 car lengths from that school bus so that you are not in any way violating the law, which requires us to stop for school buses when their lights are on. And then lights turn from green to yellow to red. That yellow doesn't mean you need to speed up before you get that thing turns red so you can get by the bus, though I'm sure every one of us is tempted to do that. You need to make sure that you give them plenty of leeway. Secondly, there are kids walking around all the time, much more. Even though it's not summer, there are kids out because some kids are being Zoom trained at home and they're out wandering around during the day. So we need to be aware of children. We need to be aware of school zones. We need to be aware of everything that might take place that causes us problems. Emergency vehicles, fire trucks, and ambulances. Most districts, you have an ambulance that comes that's tied to the fire department. Many times they send a fire engine too. We have a medical tower that our office is in, and occasionally there's people that need to be gotten by ambulance. And most of the time, the fire engine and an ambulance will show up. So you got to be looking for 2. When you're driving down the street, do you recognize that might happen? You hear the siren, you see the ambulance go by, you think, okay, I'm fine, not realizing 50 feet behind was a fire engine. You need to be looking in your mirrors, find out what the noise is coming from, and be prepared for whatever comes that way. Police cars too use their alarms to let us know of their presence, that they're coming, and we need to pull out of the way. The law is, if you have an emergency vehicle behind you and its lights are on and its siren is going, you are supposed to, as safely as possible, pull to the right of the road to let them by. During rush hour traffic, when you have 4 lanes, they're all filled with traffic, it's kind of hard to do. But that's what our responsibility is, and so in a safe manner, work with the vehicles around you to create the opening so they can get by. Signal lights. In Texas, we have signal lights that have red lights, yellow lights, and green lights. This is not what they mean. Green does not mean go, it does. Yellow does not mean go faster. And red does not mean hit it so you can get through the intersection. But I think half the Texas drivers I see all think that's what those lights mean. Green is go, but green does not mean go without regard of others. You still need to be watching out for someone else to violate the light. Yellow means it's caution. You need to be prepared to stop. By law, if you cannot stop before the light turns red, you are allowed to go through the intersection with an understanding that other people might enter that intersection. You need to be extra careful. That does not mean you hit the accelerator and go quickly. That means your normal flow should take you through that intersection before the light turns red. If you're driving at a speed in which you can stop, you should stop. And red means stop. It means the other people on the other direction are being given the right to go, and you are not to impede their right. Lights are, we all are in a hurry. And invariably, when you're in a hurry, you're going to catch every light going to your destination. And every time you approach it, it's going to turn yellow, then red, and you got to wait. And some of these lights are longer than others. Your frustration will build. Control your emotions. Control your outlook. Control yourself. Because those emotions are things that can cause you harm. You also need to understand that it is inappropriate to run a red light if you could have stopped. Finally, if the lights are not working, that becomes a four-way stop. That means everybody has to stop, wait their turn, and then go through the light, respecting the rest of the traffic. Now, we understand the phrase right away. If you and another person pulls to an intersection at the same time, the person on the right of your vehicle has the right of way. And if your vehicle is on the right of someone else, you have the right of way to go first. Recognize that right is not something that is immovable. In other words, if they go, instead of waiting for you, you don't have the right to hit them. And you need to be cautious enough to be able to stop. People don't always follow the rules. People are not always courteous drivers. People are not always the types of individuals that are safe to be around. You've got to be careful as you drive. Going onto a freeway, you have to merge with traffic. That means you have the responsibility to drive your vehicle in a manner and speed that it merges with the flow of traffic that is already on the freeway. That does not mean they have to let you in. If they don't let you in, which is not courteous and it's not right, but still, you need to wait. You don't have the right to merge on the freeway. You have the ability to do so. And secondly, leaving a freeway. As you are leaving a freeway and moving onto an exit ramp, you're going onto the other flow of traffic. You don't have the right of way again unless the stop sign is there for the other traffic, which is not mostly the case. You again have to merge. You have the responsibility of merging with their flow. They have the right of way. Changing lanes on the freeway. You can change lanes, but you need to signal your intentions early and let them know. When you're driving on a freeway, let's assume there's 3 lanes. There's the, we'll call a curb lane, the center lane, and the acceleration lane. You should be driving mostly in the center lane, only going to the right lane as you're moving towards a place you intend to exit the freeway. And you should stay out of the acceleration lane unless you are, number one, passing someone who's in the center lane, or you are driving around a delay or something like that. The acceleration lane is designed as a passing lane, not your personal lane. Invariably, if you're like me, you drive on the freeway, you'll have people in all 3 lanes. The slowest drivers are going to be in the acceleration lane. And the people in the center lane are going to be driving at basically the same speed, and so you can't get around anybody. And then you have the right lane. And of course, you can drive around people there, but you're going to deal with traffic coming on, slow vehicles, and everybody else. So recognize, they did not design the road that day to do exactly what you wanted it to do. They designed it for traffic to function. And you need to work with the flow of traffic to help it function. Driving on slippery surfaces. We live in Houston, Texas. You may not know this, but it does rain here. And sometimes the temperature drops and that rain turns to something we call ice. Slippery surfaces require extra care. If it's raining, you need to drive more carefully. You need to recognize that the roads are slicker because in our pavement, water coming on the pavement many times will create an oil base coming up off the concrete, up the asphalt, and it creates a slippery condition. Make sure your tires are properly inflated. Do not let the air out of your tires to make them less inflated during wet conditions, because the tires properly inflation helps the grooves to open up and let the water go off. And so you need to make sure they're properly inflated. You need to make sure that your tires are in good condition and that they're ready to drive. You have a braking system in your vehicle that will help. Your vehicles that are front-wheel drive many times have a little bit better driving on wet surfaces. Pickup trucks, if you have a rear-wheel drive pickup truck and an empty back of the pickup, Recognize it's not going to be hitting the pavement as hard, and so therefore it's got the potential for slipping. Driving in rain, you need to remember that that slick road could become slippery and you could hydroplane. Once you reach the speed of 35 miles an hour, hydroplaning goes up the potential 2 and 3 times that possibility. You need to be very careful as you're driving. You stay on the pavement. You don't drift off the road. Emergency situations, those are always fun. When you have brake failure, you want to pump the brakes and hopefully they'll come back. If not, you want to take yourself foot off the accelerator and you want to head to an area in which you can safely bring your vehicle to a stop. That's planning ahead, thinking about what might be taking place. When you enter in a skid, there's 2 ways they're looked at. Many would say you should turn your front tires into the skid until such time as you regain control of the vehicle and do not hit the brakes. Take your foot off the brake. Another way is they say you should turn your vehicle tires, the front tires, in the direction where you want to go. That you then take your foot off the brake, and once you return control of the vehicle, the skid ends, you're heading in the direction you want to be. Either one's acceptable as long as you make sure you take your foot off the brake. If your accelerator sticks, you've got a problem. Kick it, move it, and if you have to, put the vehicle in neutral. It'll rev, you may hurt the engine, but you'll stop the vehicle. Intersections are always the most unsafe place you can go. Let's look at, again, these 10 essential qualities of a good driver. Number 1, patience. You've got to teach yourself patience. You've got to control your emotions to be a good driver. Secondly, calmness. There is chaos going on around you. You have got to be the calm operator of your vehicle. Consideration. We've lost that in American society, unfortunately, but you need to be a considerate driver. You need to be someone who is understanding what's going on around him and the other people, and you're not demanding control of the road. You need to be defensive and you need to be focused. You need to prepare for that drive by knowing where you're going and watching what's going on around you, and keep your mind engaged in the process. Skilled and knowledgeable, a right attitude. That's not your vehicle to control everybody else. That's your vehicle to get from point A to point B, regardless of the circumstances, so that you are in a situation that you are in control of the vehicle. You need to anticipate the actions of others. What they do will impact your life. So therefore, play the what-if game. Watch the other vehicles. Watch where their tires are pointing. Watch the eyes of the drivers you can see. Because many times where they look is where they're going, and that may not be where you want them to go. You need to be self-disciplined. That means you need to recognize your own failings and keep them under control. Finally, you need to see that the end result is a successful, safe completion of your day. You need to have practice, dedication, and work. And when every else fails, you need to be the one who's ready to deal with those failures. As a driver, you need to control your speed. Control your speed doesn't mean just driving under the speed limit. Control your speed means driving to the conditions that are there. That means if the conditions are getting worse, your speed is coming down. You need to control your vehicle. It needs to be where you have the greatest ability to be able to move in a direction it needs to move in an emergency situation. Your control of that vehicle is the thing that's going to save your life. 5 safe driver overview principles. Number 1, expect the unexpected. Number 2, speed and space management. Number 3, before you drive, make sure your vehicle is ready to drive. Number 4, before you drive, are you ready? Are you alert? Are you in control? And when all else is ready, is there gas in the vehicle? Is the driver license in there? You got your medical card? Safety is always number 1, a proof of insurance. In other words, are all the things that should be done, done? That's the secret to being a safe driver. That's the secret to controlling you as a driver. This is Mike Mackenberg with Adams Insurance. We've been discussing the process of your normal daily drive. And we looked at every circumstance that possibly could happen as you're driving. We saw that cities are the best, driving is the worst, but we also saw you can survive. Good luck to you. Now you need to see the person who's in charge of your program. Talk to them because they will have a series of questions to ask you that test. Thank you.